In the brief time I have allotted left to me, I'd just like to start by saying of all of the classes I've taken at McMaster, the two that I've had the most unreasonably high expectations for have got to have been Arts and Economics and Legal Inquiry. And somehow they've actually fulfilled and gone beyond all of those expectations. So I wanted to thank them for that and say that that fact makes it so much harder to say that everything that they're arguing is unfortunately, irrevocably, and horribly wrong. Now, as the ravishing mishap has already established, full professors are quite the teachers. So why the hell wouldn't we want them to teach us? Duh! They've spent years becoming authorities in their respective subjects, honing their knowledge, so that they know as much as they possibly can. They are uniquely qualified to teach us on these subjects, instead of sessional profs who kind of just show up. Right now, personally, I'm in the middle of my favorite term of university, and it's because the majority of my classes are hardcore lecture-based classes where I go, and it's just a ton of information for 50 minutes, and I learn so much, and it's so exciting. An example of this would have been Arts and Economics. Any of you who are taking it or have taken it, you go with SCARTH, and it's like a water hose of economic information that hits you for 50 minutes. You're a bit dazed at the end of it, but you feel like you've learned 55 minutes. You feel like you've learned so much. That's what I want from my classes. But enough from the personal accounts. I want to refer to a broad international scheme. If you look at China, they tend to outperform North America on almost every standardized test. And do they have any of these wishy-washy, experiential-based learning, how does math make you feel? They have hardcore lecture-based style classes. I would like to just have a point here. With only 7 years of that education, bam, you get young. Just another anecdote. Imagine you're a 4-year-old, and you're just discovering the world. Now, your mom goes, "Don't touch the stove, it's hot." Do you trust the authority, the professor, your mom, and not touch the stove? Or have an experiential learning in which I'd just like to conclude our opening statements by saying that we are certainly not arguing that university students shouldn't learn for themselves. We're just arguing that the tried and true method of lecturing, which has worked for years, is the best at conveying massive swaths of information in a short period of time, and then we can hone our own critical thinking during essay writing and tutorials. Thank you.
We will now have a 5-minute response and making a further point from the professors.
Thank you all. Stay seated if I may. Just I don't get paid enough to stand. I wanted to start off with the rebuttal and a couple points of my own, but first to frame the context of the resolution, I want to understand the proper interpretive approach to take to a resolution. And that is that there's only one accepted approach to interpretation of resolutions of arts and science students' debates, namely that the words of the resolution are to be read in their entire context. The grammatical note needs to act harmoniously with the scheme of the resolution, the program and the intention of the drafters, if the drafters did have any intention. Beginning with the purpose of analysis of the resolution, I'll begin with the first part. There's obviously 2 components to the resolution. Different methods of instructing, away from lecture style towards experiential learning, and the second part being the identities of instructors moving towards sessionals. I'll adopt a purpose of analysis for the first and a textual for the second. The purpose, when you think about the purpose of a shift towards the experiential inquiry-based learning, it's was even mentioned by with very great respect by my colleagues, that the object is for critical thinking. As yes, you can do it on your tutorials or on your essay writing, although having read a few comments.
I get to vote at the end.
So the critical thinking component is a major part of the inquiry-based learning of the shift in classes, and the ability to think critically is the ability to come up with good arguments. And so, to the extent that any of my colleagues' arguments is a good argument, they can thank me. for that. So either their arguments are terrible, in which case they can rest on their laurels, or they've got critical thinking abilities and they've produced good arguments, in which case they prove the point that inquiry-based learning works. Now, with respect to the textual analysis of the second part of the resolution, I think it bears repeating the words because it's really a master job to draft. It provides that tenured teaching positions are decreasing as sessional teachers become more increasingly used. More increasingly. That's the quality that we get from someone who's gone through the regular education system. Sessional observation classes comes up with that kind of wording. What word I wanted to focus on is what's happening to sessional teachers. According to the resolution, is they become used. So I looked in the Oxford English Dictionary. Available online at oed.com. To find out what used meant. So if you've been in a class with the drafters of this resolution and others, you would know what thorough exhaustion means. And the third definition of use that the Oxford English Dictionary provides is worn out, debilitated, rendered useless as with hard work. So here I stand before you, rendered useless by hard work, and arguing that that is a good thing. And frankly, in my profession, you're often told that the world would be a much better place if a lawyer or two was rendered useless. So it's in fact cause for celebration in some quarters. And therefore, I think it's quite clear that by the drafting of this resolution, overall, the decreasing, the using of sessional lectures is a good thing.
50 more seconds. We will now have a 5-minute response from the opposition.
I would like to begin by addressing the point that my esteemed adversaries have made about sessional professors being cheaper than tenured professors. Now, sessional professors, first of all, are cheaper for the university. Yet, as sessional professors are becoming increasingly used as the resolution was drafted, yet as it was today shown, there was a debate about tuition hikes. And in fact, tuition is going up while cheaper professors are being used. So it leads me to question the use of these funds that we are saving by firing our competent professors. More competent. I would also like to question the usefulness of a university degree in which we are opting for cheaper teachers. To liken this to something in which I have some expertise, as I work in a bar, first of all, why would we drink boxed wine when we could drink Chablis? I ask you, and as one who has drank boxed wine, and not so much Chablis, it's a bad choice. Also, I believe my adversary made the point that if you lower the wages or if you render the wages lower university students are getting at the completion of their degree, then their tuition would eventually become lower. I'm not entirely convinced that this is true, because it seems to me, although I have a somewhat limited understanding of the subject of economics, which is the lower that costs are, the lower that inputs become, or the lower that costs are for the university, the lower costs that the students would have to pay, which would mean the lower tuition that we'd have to pay. It doesn't seem to make sense to me that if we are making more money once we're out, that we would have to pay less, or if we're making less once we get out, we would have to pay less to get in. This seems like an unnecessarily convoluted argument. While a much simpler one is available, where if we lower costs, we should be paying lower, but we're not paying lower, we're paying higher, as I previously demonstrated. So we'd be getting less while paying more, which doesn't seem to make sense to me. And I'll rest my case there.
Do you guys have about 2 minutes remaining?
2 minutes left? All right, great then. Continuing on the economic analysis, actually in Dr. Scarrett's class, I learned that education is an investment in the future, and that this isn't a like, oh wow, no, you actually do it. And like, if you think about it, all of the improvements of our lives have been through education. Generally, medicine is the obvious one. Since even 100 years ago, our life expectancy has risen some ridiculous amount, at least 10 years. I'm going to guess closer to 20. In general, quality of life has gone up because we've invested in education. And this doesn't just improve the quality of the people you're educating, it improves the quality of life for everyone. So actually, if we really wanted to help the poor, we would make sure we're training up the best students possible. And I think we've shown that that would be done using full professors and traditional style classes, but we'll go on a bit with that more. Furthermore, my esteemed teachers' argument is that universities would then not prove the stamp, but I'm pretty sure if you take his argument to his logical conclusion, and they're not actually teaching us anything, he was arguing that universities shouldn't even exist at all and serve no purpose. And I don't think that's a tenable argument to make. I think they definitely do serve a purpose. So I would say on the like kind of slippery slope fallacy, but it's not a fallacy. It makes his argument not worthwhile. I think just as a closing note, I'm pretty sure Sven put in that reference to the OED website there to supplement his feeble income that he's getting from the and do you really want your professors advertising while you're learning?